Picture the most stunning girl in school. Tall, blonde, ice blue eyes. Conversations stop when she enters. How does a local star become a Gestapo agent? Through a pistol in her coat pocket. Fast forward 10 years. Berlin winters are freezing. Temperatures drop to -10 degrees Celsius. Frozen snow crunches under heavy boots. Stella Goldschlag patrols the darkened streets. Her right hand grips cold steel, a Gestapo pistol. She does not look for strangers. She scans the terrified crowd for familiar faces. Former classmates, old neighbors, friends from her youth. By 1943, roughly 7,000 Jews remained hiding underground in Berlin. They called themselves submarines. Stella knew their habits. She recognized their faces. While former friends desperately tried to blend into the city's wartime chaos, she used her memories to track them down. The Gestapo gave her a title. They called her the Blonde Poison. She walked the streets daily. She pointed fingers. She signed arrest warrants. 3,000 victims equal the entire population of a small European town. That is the sheer scale of her betrayal. She exposed anywhere from 600 to 3,000 Jews. Trains took those captured citizens eastward. Their final destination was the gas chambers of Auschwitz. 2 years of waiting on the American consulate lists. But the pistol did not appear in Stella's pocket overnight, because the Reich first methodically sealed every border. On January 30th, 1933, Hitler became chancellor and the state began dismantling civil rights. Her father lost his position at the Gaumont newsreel company when the government purged Jewish professionals. The family sank into sudden poverty, relying entirely on meager welfare payments to survive. By 1935, authorities banned Jewish children from all state schools. Stella transferred to the Goldschmidt School, a private sanctuary staffed by brilliant professors recently expelled from German universities. Then came the violence of November 9, 1938. Kristallnacht shattered the illusion of safety as mobs burned synagogues and destroyed businesses. Stella returned home from classes to find her father hiding from the patrols. The family applied for immediate emigration to the United States. The American consulate responded with a cold refusal, printed on crisp official letterhead, dropping them to the bottom of the waiting list. The Evian Conference of 1938 had already cemented this reality, leaving German Jews without any legal avenues for escape. The trap snapped shut. Other foreign consulates refused to accept their applications. Why play jazz in the capital of the Reich in 1941? For the illusion of a normal life. Inside that 1938 bureaucratic cage, Manfred Kubler and Stella attempted to build a private world. They hid a small jazz band right in the center of Nazi Germany. The state had officially outlawed swing music back in 1935, but they kept playing. Manfred led the musicians. Stella sang. They originally met as teenagers at the Goldschmidt School. Now the government forced them both into the same factory. 10-hour shifts of mandatory labor drained their energy. Yet after work, the upbeat sounds of jazz echoed through a cold Berlin basement. A sharp, rhythmic defiance against the shadows. Their romance grew between secret rehearsals and the shared terror of the streets. They held on to each other. The outside world prepared for mass deportations. Inside, she was just a young woman in love with her bandmate. They decided to formalize their bond, despite the closing walls. They married in the autumn of 1941. Manfred's jazz escapism echoed the vibrant 1920s, when Gerhard Goldschlag wore his military decorations and conducted prominent Berlin orchestras. On July 10, 1922, Gerhard and Antonia welcomed their daughter Stella into a household built on deep cultural integration. They studied German literature, performed national music, and nurtured a profound connection to the state. During the First World War, over 100,000 Jews served in the German army, considering themselves patriots of their nation. Gerhard belonged to this proud, loyal generation. He was a decorated frontline veteran who fought for his country. The Gestapo saw him only as another name on a deportation list. This calculated assimilation shaped young Stella, who attended the Goldschmidt School and captivated everyone around her. classmates described her striking appearance as the local equivalent of Marilyn Monroe. She grew up believing that art and identity offered a permanent shield against the darkness. The illusion crumbled quietly under the weight of new laws. The music ended. What does the end of hope look like? Like a morning Gestapo raid. But Gerhardt's cultural assimilation offered no protection. The entire family ended up on the Siemens assembly lines. By September 1941, Stella wore the yellow star. She stood at the conveyor belt. She built electric engines. She produced ammunition. Then came February 27, 1943. The Fabrikation began. Gestapo units stormed the Siemens factory grounds. Heavy iron gates clanged shut. They blocked the main exits. SS units arrested 10,000 Jews across Berlin during this single operation. Panic erupted inside the workshop. Stella and her mother slipped into the crowded factory floor. Their blonde hair was perfect camouflage. They walked right past the armed guards. Manfred failed to escape the sudden dragnet. Officers grabbed him. They dragged him. Guards loaded him into dark cattle cars. The locked transport headed straight to Auschwitz. He never returned. With Manfred gone forever, Stella and her parents made their choice and went underground. How did the Gestapo hunt the elusive forger Gunther Rogoff? Through interrogating those whose papers he faked. The forced shift to an underground life ended abruptly. On July 2, 1943, Stella pushed open the doors of a crowded Berlin pub. She walked toward an empty table. Suddenly, eye contact locked with Inga Lustig across the smoky room. Lustig was a Jewish catcher already working for the authorities. Gestapo agents blocked all exits. Handcuffs snapped onto Stella's wrists. Guards dragged her to the headquarters at Bergstrasse 26. This massive building was once a Jewish nursing home. The Gestapo confiscated the property, emptied its rooms, and converted the quiet corridors into a high-security prison. The investigators needed the real Chioma Schönhaus. 40 high-quality forged passports produced by Schönhaus. The underground network of Berlin Jews depended on his work. The agents were certain Stella knew his exact hiding place. She did not. Soviet interrogation files and West German court transcripts document the subsequent isolation. Agents beat her shins to the edge of fracture. The dull, heavy thud of blunt instruments echoed as they struck her spine. Blood flowed simultaneously from her mouth, ears, and nose. Officers pressed a loaded pistol to her temple 3 separate times. She lost consciousness. They kicked her ribs until she woke up. The cycle resumed. She reached the physical limit where a person breaks under torture. The interrogation yielded nothing. Schönhaus later escaped to Switzerland by bicycle. Stella remained trapped in the dark cellar. On July 10th, her 21st birthday, she bolted from a heavily guarded dental clinic. Stella could have vanished into burning Berlin, yet she surrendered voluntarily to the guards of a holding facility. The Allied air raid on August 23, 1943, provided a perfect chance to disappear, but she chose to walk straight into the Grosse Hamburger Strasse transit camp. She arrived at the gates to die alongside her family. Instead, an SS officer offered her a job. The Gestapo turned betrayal into a standardized bureaucratic contract. SS officer Felix Lakemond outlined the precise conditions for her new role as a Greifer, a catcher of Jews. The state equipped her with an official Gestapo document, a service firearm, and the right to move freely without a yellow star. Lakemond set her compensation at 300 Reichsmarks for every successful arrest. This fixed tariff roughly equaled the monthly salary of a skilled German worker. In exchange, the officer promised to remove her parents from the deportation lists bound for Auschwitz. The regime recognized her intimate knowledge of the Berlin underground as a valuable asset. She possessed the names and specific daily habits of hundreds of families hiding in the shadows. Archival records confirm that she did not merely follow orders, but actively embraced her position to hunt down the resistance. Who did the Berlin Underground fear most in autumn 1944? Their former classmate with a warm smile. Between 5,000 and 7,000 hidden Jews remained in the capital. Historians refer to this invisible population as U-Boot. Stella became a fatal threat to this entire network. She turned her Goldschmidt school memories into a hunting database. She remembered faces. She knew family connections, former classmates, their parents, their cousins, all became targets. She worked closely with Rolf Isaacson. He was another Jewish collaborator. They married on October 29, 1944. The hunted underground called them Das schöne Paar, the beautiful couple. They were deadly. Stella perfected a deceptive tactic. She stood on street corners. She played the starving refugee. She begged passing strangers for help. Someone always took pity on her. They guided her to a safe apartment. The heavy door locked behind them. Stella signaled the Gestapo agents waiting outside. Officers smashed through the entrance. The trap snapped shut in seconds. Stella searched the victim's pockets and bags. She hunted for address books. Personal contacts were the greatest prize. Each captured notebook exposed a new layer of the resistance. More names, more safe houses, more arrests. She even stalked the city graveyards. Jewish widows buried their non-Jewish husbands. Mixed marriages offered temporary immunity from deportation. That legal protection ended at the grave. Stella watched them from a short distance. She felt the cold cemetery soil beneath her shoes. She memorized their grieving faces. She reported the women to the authorities, before the earth over the coffins even settled. Holocaust survivor Inga Deutschkron remembered her calculated methods of hunting the invisible Berlin underground perfectly. She could smell hidden Jews. How did the Gestapo pay for arrests? With an Auschwitz ticket. In February 1944, authorities deported her parents to the Theresienstadt ghetto. The regime used this location as a model transit point to deceive the Red Cross. The deal meant nothing. Both died in the Auschwitz gas chambers. She kept hunting. Collaborator Heino Meisel joined her. In early 1945, her Gestapo handlers would vanish, leaving her pregnant and alone with the advancing Red Army. Total victims numbered between 600 and 3,000. How to vanish when the Red Army takes the city? Stella Goldschlag tried to pose as a surviving victim. In April 1945, the hunter fled. She ran north. She hid in the village of Liebenwalde. She gave birth to her daughter, Yvonne. But isolation offered no real escape. Berlin finally fell. The date was May 2nd. 2 million Soviet troops held the ruins. Leaving the city was physically impossible. 160,000 Jews lived there before. Fewer than 1,700 remained alive. Stella claimed Holocaust survivor status to police. Officers believed her. They sent her for official identification. She entered the Jewish Community Center. Survivors recognized her face instantly. Screams shattered the quiet room. They lunged. They dragged her into the street. They shaved her head bare. The crowd wanted blood. Soviet guards finally stepped in. Arrest followed immediately. A Soviet military tribunal handed down her sentence for the thousands of betrayed lives. 2 different courts condemned her to 10 years each, yet she walked free immediately after the second verdict. The Soviet tribunal needed only minutes to mandate 10 years of hard labor in their special camps. She survived the sentence and sought her daughter Yvonne. The young girl refused any contact with her biological mother. By 1957, West German authorities initiated a new trial against the collaborator. Camera flashes constantly illuminated her face, while local reporters dubbed her the Blonde Witch. Court psychiatrists diagnosed schizophrenic psychopathy, shattering the illusion of a desperate mother acting under extreme duress. The judges handed down another 10-year sentence. Thanks to her previous Soviet term, she spent 0 additional days behind bars. Following her release, the former informant registered 3 new marriages. Why did a former Gestapo prisoner embrace Christianity and become an outspoken anti-Semite? This marked the ultimate step to rewrite her biography. She erased her past methodically. She married 3 non-Jewish men. She changed her faith. During late interviews, she openly blamed Jewish people for her persecution, claiming survivors envied her beauty. The attempt failed. Every marriage collapsed. Her daughter refused contact. She relocated to Freiburg. This quiet university town bordered the Black Forest, lying hundreds of kilometers from the Berlin streets of her youth. By 1994, she was 72 years old. She was ill and completely isolated. On October 26th, she walked toward the Mooseweiher pond. She stepped into the cold water and never returned. Her actions condemned up to 3,000. The girl who sang jazz in Berlin and the Gestapo's deadliest accomplice are the same person in the investigative files. Her physical journey ended on a quiet shore. Archives permanently locked both identities. Old sheet music, songs of her first love, informant reports, dry paper rustles. A photograph shows a girl singing at a microphone. Right next to it lie heavy interrogation protocols. Typed lists of betrayed people. 80 years pass. The blonde poison. Historians still argue today, spending decades attempting to dissect the choices of a woman who traded human lives for personal survival. The historical record is precise. Yad Vashem meticulously gathers the names of Holocaust victims. Her own biography exists solely within the records of post-war tribunals. Their names mark memorial walls in stone. Her name sits trapped on the pages of criminal cases.